Get ready, because today we're going to talk about the 10 worst types of writers and how to improve if you are one of these types. By the way, my name is Brandon McNulty. I'm the author of Story Made Simple, which covers the 8 key elements of storytelling. And if you want to improve your craft, check the link in the description below so you can pick up your copy today. One of my subscribers asked me to do a follow-up to one of my older videos, and it's the one where I discuss the 5 worst types of writers and where they go wrong. And after thinking about the subject for a little bit, I came up with 10 new types of bad writers, and we're going to discuss these today. Now, let me be clear. These are not bad people, nor are they people who are doomed to forever be bad writers. There's always a chance for improvement, and that's why after I discuss each type, I'm going to give you some suggestions for improving your work and developing as a writer. First type of bad writer is the Tarantino wannabe. And in reality, you could be a wannabe of any major author. You could be a Stephen King wannabe, a George R.R. Martin wannabe, a Chuck Palahniuk wannabe, but I noticed that Tarantino is the guy a lot of people zero in on, because what happens is they watch Pulp Fiction, they fall in love with it, they watch it a million times afterwards, and they focus on things like the dialogue or the stylish action or the plot twists, and they don't really bother to learn about the actual craft of storytelling. They just focus on those key things that really stand out about Tarantino's stories. So you might actually meet one of these writers and they'll be talking about Tarantino and they'll hand you one of the scenes they've written, and the dialogue might be awesome and maybe there's some really cool action going on, but then when you ask them what the actual story is about, they just shut down. And you don't want to be like that. You don't want to be in that situation where you're just zeroing in on trying to be a certain type of writer and trying to copy their style. And the fix here is to be you, not Tarantino. It's fine to draw inspiration from the guy, but you should also be drawing inspiration from other sources as well. And from there, you want to start telling your own stories, making mistakes, and learning about the craft as you continue to improve. Second type of bad writer is the high school sweetheart. And this is a writer who stays married to a specific idea that they came up with in high school or maybe even before then. And what happens is they make it their life goal to turn this idea into a novel, screenplay, whatever. And the problem is that instead of testing out all types of ideas or testing out different types of stories or taking risks or whatever it is, they get tunnel vision for this one singular idea and they never move beyond it. Now, sometimes the idea might actually be good, but the reality is in order to bring an idea to life, you have to develop as a writer. And the way you do that is by telling multiple stories, telling all sorts of stories, making mistakes along the way, and coming into your own. And that's the fix here. Tell many stories, not just the one you think you're destined to write. And who knows, sometimes you take a chance on a silly idea and it ends up becoming something amazing. Third type of bad writer is the first-year MFA student. Now, I'm not saying that every first-year grad student is a bad writer. There are plenty of grad students out there who are telling worthwhile stories while they pursue a creative writing degree. But at the same time, there are also some MFA students who tell these mundane, empty stories that go nowhere, and they hide the fact that the storytelling sucks by elevating their language, giving us flowery prose, and just overdoing everything on the writing level. Now, this is not just limited to MFA students. There are a lot of newer writers out there who, instead of taking risks and exploring imaginative ideas, they just tell everyday stories about their everyday lives while fictionalizing them in small ways. And the thing is, if you are writing about your everyday life and you're trying to make it into a story, chances are it's going to be boring, especially if you're like a student and you don't have a lot of life experience. So the fix here is that you want to try writing about characters who aren't you. You want to try writing about situations that you've never been in. Explore ideas, test out new imaginative concepts, and see where a story can go, because that's the way you grow as a writer. You step outside yourself. Fourth type of bad writer is the squanderer. These are writers who are naturally gifted, they're actually super talented, and sometimes they'll write like a short story or even like an opening scene to a larger thing, and when you read it, it blows you away and it just makes you wonder like what they're capable of, but they never actually commit to the craft and getting better. I've met a bunch of writers like this through the years, and the problem is usually one of two things. Either they're lazy and they don't want to do any hard work, or it's a situation where they're afraid that their talent isn't going to carry them through like a longer work like a novel or screenplay. They think that they're only good in short bursts. And the fix here is to accept that talent alone won't carry you the distance. You will have to learn about the craft, you will have to make mistakes, and you will have to work hard over the course of your career in order to become a better writer. Type number 5 is the soapboxer. And these are writers who tell genuinely fun and engaging stories, but they interrupt everything from time to time in order to pepper in some unnecessary opinions. And these opinions, they may or may not be political. For an example of one that isn't political, I remember about a decade ago I was reading a sci-fi novel, and it was like post-apocalyptic, characters were on this journey, and in the middle of the story there was like this 2 to 3 page rant about how the Beatles were better than the Rolling Stones. And it was just something that completely took me out of the story, and it just had no impact on the plot or where it was going. It just felt like a total waste of time. The fix here is to ask yourself if your story really needs your opinions mixed in. In some cases it might. It might push the story forward, it might tie into the themes in a meaningful way, but oftentimes it's only going to take the audience out of the action. So be careful with this, and always ask yourself if there's a way to trim it down or cut it out. I think I could have lived with that Beatles and Rolling Stones comparison if it had only been a sentence or two, but when it's 2 pages, it's just too much. Type number 6 is the perfection pursuer. And I am guilty of being one of these. I'm a huge perfectionist. Sometimes I'll be telling a story and I'll go through all sorts of revisions and rewrites, when in fact, like, I should just be pushing forward with the story. I should just be confident in what I have on the page and how the story is playing out. Other times I'll have situations where I'm editing the story and I'll edit the same opening paragraph like 472 times instead of just, maybe I should be editing it like 4 or 5 times. So be careful of this if you are a perfectionist. And the fix here is to give yourself a deadline. Give yourself a concrete deadline. For instance, right now I'm working on a new novel, and I have a plan to meet with a couple writers at the end of the month, and I want to show them the opening chapters. So I need to have those opening chapters ready, and that's going to force me to push aside the perfectionism and get stuff done. Type number 7 is the play-by-play commentator. And these are writers who give us every single detail, and they express every event that happens over the course of the story. It's essentially as though the story is taking place in real time, and they don't want us to miss out on anything. When in reality, we should be missing out on things because there are a lot of mundane details that we don't want. And those mundane details are what slow down the pacing and take us out of the story. And the fix here is you gotta learn to recognize what pushes a story forward, whether it's plot developments, character interactions, or key details. We don't need everything. We only need what's relevant. Type number 8 is the research addict. And these writers want to write something grand, something like a novel, a screenplay, something big. But instead of actually digging in and testing out the story and seeing where it goes, they decide to research relevant information. And what happens is they get caught in this research loop because they're afraid to actually tell the story, and they just keep researching and researching and researching, and you see them like 3 months later and you're like, hey, how's the novel going? And they're like, oh, I'm still researching, and then they bury their nose in a history book and they never leave. And this is usually a confidence issue. It's something that a lot of newer writers are guilty of. And the fix here is to actually start writing and then send your work out to friends or a critique group for feedback. Because once you start getting feedback, once you start recognizing where you need to improve, the process gets a lot easier. I know it hurts when you do get criticized, when you do get some form of rejection, but it will help you grow and develop, and it will help you get your story done sooner. Type number 9 is the fearful formal writer. And these are writers who want to write about something that scares them. It might be a controversial topic or something deeply personal, or it might be something they feel is below them, like a brutal horror story. But instead of actually writing these things that excite them, they try to protect their reputation, and they write proper stories with proper sentences and proper grammar and proper language and all those other wonderful formal things. And the problem here is that you're never going to be happy if you're writing these safe, boring stories that you don't care about. At some point, you have to give yourself permission to write the story that you want to write. And if you want to clean it up later before you show it to other people, that's fine. But give yourself that permission. Write what you're passionate about. And another thing to keep in mind, you can always use a pen name if you want to protect your reputation. There are ways to distance yourself from your writing. But at the very least, when you're in private, you have to accept who you are and write who you are. Finally, type number 10 is the elitist. These are insecure writers who overestimate their strengths and ignore their weaknesses. And when they're around other writers, they tend to look down on them, especially if they're right at their skill level, and they may even put these people down face to face or behind their back. And the fix here is to leave your ego at the door when you interact with other writers. They have a lot they can teach you, and you should never assume that you know everything about the craft of writing. You always want to assume that you have room for growth, and if you continue to grow, great things will happen. So I hope this helps. Question of the day, have you ever been any of these types of writers? And if so, how did you overcome it? Let us know in the comments section below. Also, let us know if there are some other writer types I didn't think of. Thank you for watching. If you want to support the channel, please pick up a copy of Story Made Simple and be sure to leave reviews on Amazon. The book covers the 8 key elements of storytelling and it'll help you boost your skills as a writer. Also, be sure to like and subscribe, check out my other videos, maybe support me on Patreon, and as always, remember to keep on writing.